Bharat to accelerate frontier growth in key sectors, defense and aerospace manufacturing, electronics manufacturing, and gig economy. So to chair the session, may I invite Mr. Varun Prakash, partner McKinsey, and to join him in this conversation, we have Mr. Jayant Patil, Mr. Josh Fogler, and Rear Admiral S. Venkatraman, Mrs. Seva Medal. May I request all the panelists to join me on the stage, please? Please come.
Thank you. How are you?
So let's welcome them with a round of applause. Yeah, that's great. May I have the AV of the panelists, please?
Mr. Varun Prakash, partner, India, leader in McKinsey's technology practice. He is the global leader for alliance and ecosystem-led growth for the technology services industry and works with clients on shaping digital-led transformations across sectors. He is passionate about initiatives to scale up India's capabilities by leveraging technology and innovation. He is part of the leadership team of the India Century Initiative, a collaboration between McKinsey and FICCI to drive industry-backed initiatives to drive sustainable and inclusive growth across sectors. Mr. J.D. Patil is a member of the Executive Council at L&T and advisor to the CEO, MD for L&T's defense and new age smart technology businesses. He is an alumnus of IIT Mumbai, having pursued MTech Mechanical Engineering in 1978. Mr. Patil guided the growth of smart cities, safe cities, and communication businesses with a focus on making our cities smart and safe. Today, L&T is the largest Indian player in this sector with a series of success stories such as the Prayagraj Kumbh Mela, Odisha Coastal Storm Warning System, and transformation of 26 major Indian cities into smart cities. Mr. Josh Folger, Managing Director of Bharat FIH Limited, he is responsible for architecting the company's strategy, business development, and transformation. Mr. Folger is a postgraduate in industrial engineering, specializing in robotics from the University of Texas, Arlington, USA. He has over 27 years of experience in electronics manufacturing operations and supply chain management. Rear Admiral S. Venkatraman assumed charge as Fortna on 20th May 2022. Rear Admiral S. Venkatraman was commissioned into the Indian Navy on 1st January 1990. He is an alumni of the National Defence Academy Kadakwasla Defence Services Staff College, Wellington, and the College of Defence Management, Hyderabad. The flag officer is a specialist in communications and electronic warfare and has tenanted various appointments on frontline warships of the Indian Navy. His sea tenures include command of the stealth frigate INS Tabar and second in command of the aircraft carrier INS Virat. His significant staff appointments include a tenure as the Fleet Communications Officer, Western Fleet, and as the head of the Directorate of Naval Intelligence at the Naval Headquarters.
May I now request Mr. Varun Prakash to take it forward.
Thank you. Thanks to MMA for organizing today's discussion, and thanks to the esteemed panel here for what I think is a very, very fascinating topic. So I look forward to hearing all of your thoughts. I want to start off by maybe providing two bits of data before we get into the discussion, right? The first is that global supply chains are changing rapidly. We think there's about $1 trillion of opportunity for India to build manufacturing and supply chain related capabilities. So the opportunity is large. The other data point is we're also one of the fastest growing working age population nations in the world. Over the next 25 years, we need to develop 220 million new jobs. 90 million of these are people moving from agriculture towards manufacturing and services. So again, not just a huge opportunity, a huge imperative as well that we build these industries and become more but in the process, right? So there's a range of topics that we'd like to cover, but I want to start with the opportunity first, right? And let's start with defense and smart world, smart cities, etc. So JD, what do you see as some of the emerging areas where you see opportunities in this space, where we can build capabilities, we can build economic value? Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. And I must say, thanks to MMA for calling me to Chennai for this. When we talk of defense sector, this is one sector which today is making enormous amount of difference. Just about 10 years back, when the 12th plan was getting discussed, up to 12th plan, we know that defense used to be never even counted as a part of the planning process. And from that to 2022-23, we have seen a sea change. This was an era when India was importing, became the largest importer gradually over that period. And this was also an era in which we used to import 70% of what our defense forces needed. About 30% used to happen here. The scenario has dramatically changed over one decade. What I'll capture through is some of this journey, because till 2001, that's precisely one decade after the economic liberalization, the defense sector was opened up. Till 2002, no industry could produce anything for defense. It was licensed in 2002, and 2005 onwards, we actually have seen the real opportunities in the form of, they call it RFP, simpler words, the tenders through which the industry can participate. So this is essentially a journey of what you see of an industry, which is exactly 20 years as of now, 2002 to 2022. And there's enormous amount of change we can see that has happened in this sector. As I mentioned, the 30% was the indigenous part. Fast forward today, there are 365 private companies who are licensed, and the individual number of licenses are roughly about 600. And they are the ones who are truly producing what you see on the slides, battle tanks being produced and things like that. Warships, submarines, battle tanks today happening indigenous. Obviously, this has been a journey of nearly about 3 to 4 decades, because DRDO in a very big way, after Dr. Kalam moved into DRDO, actually started making enormous amount of focus on what needs to be done within the country. And this is in a way the competence that the industry gradually built from entire dependence for knowledge technologies on DRDO to then emerge in its own abilities to be able to work directly with abstract requirements which would be captured in the form of what the user would put with the Ministry of Defense. Huge amount of changes from this 2001 to 2022 we have seen in terms of policies. There have been at least nearly about a dozen major policy changes which have come in over this period. And now the policy has certain amount of stability. We see the policy stability of 5 years at any given point in time. And today it's very close to being level playing for private sector. It used to be, as I said, till 2001, reserved for the state. So only public enterprise could produce defense goods. Today, almost anything the industry is allowed to produce. Of course, wherever opportunities are, industry has built those capabilities, as we have seen. Why is it important when we talk of Atmanirbhar? It's just captured on this one single slide. Rising budgets, we have seen from 2014, 70,000 crores of acquisition now is 162,000 crores of acquisition per year. So there's a substantial change. And this change, if we start seeing on the backdrop of today, roughly 2% of GDP that gets spent, we actually produce a GDP contribution more than what we put in. And I think that's a way of looking at it, simply because once it goes into a tierized industry, there's a multiplier. So the Atmanirbhar journey is not mere a slogan. It's something which delivers you back more than what you put in. And this is what used to physically go out of the country. And now the target is to keep it in. It produces more than what it takes. The indigenous defense production, the current targets that they exist, out of this 162,000 crore, about 120 roughly happens within the country. And from this 120, the target is to take it to 170. This 120 is split roughly in 100,000 crores in the form of what the industry produces for itself, for within the country. But 20,000 crores is soon going to be the exports. Last year's actual numbers were 12,000 crores. That number is just about to be crossed within the first 10 months of this financial year. So we probably will see somewhere around 15, 16,000 crores in 22-23. And in the budget year, where the 162,000 crores is actually allocated, number would be that much higher. And we'll reach somewhere close to that. By 25-26 is the target to reach 170. Budgets today are, as a result, preferentially being placed on Indian industries. 82% of future acquisition of roughly 5 lakh crores has been today put into the Indian industry basket. And that's where the Atmanirbhar no longer remains a slogan. It's a reality in terms of future opportunities. The idea of government telling you this ahead and actually putting it into these categories of indigenous production is to tell you to get ready. And if you're agile, you get yourself ready. You only have that pot of gold at the end of that period. Now, this is essentially where the industry today is moving. The public sector, as we all know, is range bound in terms of growth. So the real growth is coming in the form of what the private sector will do. 92% of current exports are coming from private sector. So this is where the private sector today roughly does about 1/3 of what the government buys. In addition to that, about 90% of exports are coming through the private sector industry. And that's where the Atmanirbhar becomes extremely relevant. Now, obviously, for the private industry, there are 3 models by which technologies can come. The organic, homegrown, there's obviously inorganic in the form of varieties of relationships, and of course, the startups looking at those capabilities. The slides here onwards is just to tell you how over this 20, 25, 30 years, the industry actually matured. And I'm just going to flash certain number of slides without much of a talking. Idea essentially is it all began with DRDO talking of prototyping and development of multiple equipment and systems indigenously. From there into the limited series, and then the large scale production started happening in the country. Earliest of the days, 40 years back, when Dr. Kalam started approaching industry, it was all built to print. DRDO designed everything, industry just produced. DRDO said, I give you detailed specification, you can design. From that, I just issue you the specification, you do right from concept design to design, detailed design, and of course, production. And from there, multiple examples of very, very complex systems that you actually see having been created within the country. Now, this gives us confidence that if these large budgets, and that typically 4 lakh crores have to happen through an indigenous acquisition, there's capabilities that the industry already has built. Today, warships are designed and built in the country. Submarines, the same thing is just about to begin. No weapon system. Today, truly, India needs to buy a design from somewhere else. And that's essentially where we are. These are futuristic battle tanks. Very major investments government of India will make over next 15 years. All of it is in the indigenous basket, and they are being designed and supposed to be produced right within this country without any transfer of technology, which is precisely what kept on happening till 2005. We only have seen TOTs coming to India. state-of-the-art surveillance equipment, radars, complete command control systems, secure communication systems, various opportunities what the government has not yet asked, but industry is capable, and industry today is allowed to make some of these proposals to government saying that I can do this, and I believe you will have a need for this, and this is what is captured in that one word called suo moto. Now, nobody tells you this is what is needed, but you can stretch your mind in future and start creating roadmap, start creating products on unmanned. I talked about a submarine today, an indigenous submarine design exists being marketed all over the world. Enormous amount of unmanned systems and equipment, which is what the war of future is not going to be fought by men. Men will certainly be needed to acquire and hold the land, but the basic battle would have happened from remote locations. And that's essentially where we are seeing the recent wars actually creating that. Varieties of equipment, as I mentioned, obviously is happening. Huge amount of success stories of indigenization. We are seeing weapon systems that are 92 to 96% indigenous content. And this is a change of era. Just about a decade back, if somebody had talked about it, he would be mentioned or he would be told you're talking fiction, that the fiction has turned into reality. And of course, the many segments and sectors of the defense today, which are 100% indigenization. Now, this is what is changing the country in a very big way. And that's essentially where, when I start looking at technology, which actually gets adopted, today you find absolutely cutting edge, call it additive manufacturing, call it 3D ways of doing things, call it industry 4.0. You see it factories after factories in the private sector. Now, this is essentially where the private sector builds that age. You see a picture of a warship on screen as designed, and the next picture is a real picture while she is at sea. Now, this is a capability by which you can produce fast, you can produce precise, you can produce something which you intended, and it precisely functions the way you would want to see. You see how warships are built. Monocoque used to be the method by which it is built in the history. You start seeing block by block. You start seeing fitting out at the block level. So you are able to control the build periods, which are substantially below what used to happen in the past. And this is where the maturity of industry to take this Atmanirbhar journey, major enablers, as I said, by policy, the government has made sure it actually will become this way. Second, commitment of money, commitment that we will buy. Third, the level playing field, which I always keep saying, it's nearly there, if not exactly fully level playing, still there for the private sector. So if we start looking at defense sector in a nutshell, it's a sunshine that began some years back. It's today, the early afternoon kind of times, and there's time to grow. And this is a sector which will start producing, as I mentioned, about 2% of the entire GDP that gets committed in the form of what goes in the overall defense, but produces far more than that in the form of GDP creation. I'll take the questions as a part of what will come later. Thank you.
For that fascinating insight into the opportunities in defense. Maybe switching gears to electronics and chips. I'm sure all of you have felt some of the pain of the shortages we've seen over the last 2 years, whether it's the prices of white goods going up or timelines for cars going from 1 to 2 months to 1 to 2 years. So Josh, if I could invite you to provide a little bit of an overview of the electronics semiconductor industry, and then we'll take it over.
This must be my friends in the front bench. Usually they're on the back benches. So hopefully I'll keep you awake after your heavy lunch, which Molly and team have provided here. So, sir, it's a pleasure to see you, Mr. Arun Mehra. Usually you're here, I'm there. So it's an honor to present in front of you. Distinguished panelists, friends, it's a pleasure to speak about the electronics industry. And once I find my presentation. Okay, so here we are. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time very quickly. Of course, it's kind of hard to compete with a presentation before me. Had a lot of awesome, sophisticated systems. But wanted to give you a very quick backdrop of what is happening in the world of global supply chains, especially the electronic supply chain, and what could be some potential opportunities, which is being conceived by the policymakers in Delhi, in government of Tamil Nadu, and beyond. So India will become a 5 trillion economy soon. And part of that is by 2026, the electronics manufacturing piece in India is targeted to be 300 billion. And I think that's, yeah, I think you can clap for it. So it's because it's today, it's about 75 billion is what the number is. So very short duration, a lot of global supply chains coming here can make this. And one of the things which excites me about this is very design intensive. This is very skill intensive. It is also very tech intensive, right? And these are multiple categories and multiple subsystems, which go into making this successful, along with very heavy integrated design element. Globally, in fact, coming into this meeting, I had a call with one of my customers about how global supply chains are realigning to the new dynamic around the world. Globalization was the norm for 20 years. Now there is a large element of deglobalization. And today, in supply chain, this is the challenge: is where do you move the materials? And everybody is looking for supply chain resilience. And if anything we have learned the last 3 years is we got to move from, do we plan and pray, or do we create a supply chain which is resilient and is able to execute depending on the demand. Now, India, I think, and on the right side, you see what I call downstream, and then it's upstream. Of course, everybody is very excited about semiconductor. Yes, semiconductor is a very important part. A lot of semiconductor design happens in India. Manufacturing does not. But along with semiconductor, you have multiple other sort of upstream industries: display, battery cell production, PCB manufacturing, and all those things. I have a picture later to show you. But today, India has started the journey on the downstream today. Make in India started this, and I'll tell you where Atmanirbhar Bharat is going to take us towards the end. And then hopefully you can read between the lines and look for opportunities on how you want to play a part as a startup, as a medium-sized company, or a large-sized company. So I'm going to probably, there's too much text, I'm going to skip through this, but see, India is not a very large market, but India is a good starter market. It's about anywhere from 3 to 5% of the global market in electronics across all categories, and definitely, according to, I think this is a Morgan Stanley study, it's definitely positive. There's definitely, it's a good starter market across all categories, especially electronics. India also has a proximal advantage of being a nearshore supply for Middle East and Africa. And this is something I did in my previous employer, Nokia, where we started to export to Middle East and Africa because it is cheaper, quicker than the current existing supply basis. There is also geopolitics, friendshoring, and the countries listed there, I think you can guess what they are. These are all opportunities, which we will be looking at as target markets. Thanks to people like my friend Suresh Raman, we have already established a trusted supply, in these locations. And I think as we look at global export markets, this is going to be very, very essential. I'm going to skip this. One thing I do want to say is Indian wages are still competitive. When you look at neighboring countries in Southeast Asia, the wage escalation is quicker. About 10 years ago, I spent a couple of years in Vietnam. Vietnam's wage level was at the time with India. Now it has eclipsed past India. And so India's wage level is competitive. India is definitely continues to have, if you're able to get the right talent at the right place, and deploy them to be successful as individuals. Make in India is actually working. A lot of people had doubts. I can tell you it is at least working in the mobile phone space. You can see what happened between Make in India was launched September 2014, and you can see the upward trend in mobile phones produced in India. So today, 98% of all the phones made in India, or sold in India are made in India, and we are doing some export as well. And that's just one category, and we're going to be looking at categories going forward, to do this happen. So India has been seen as a low-end market, not necessarily as the wealth is going to increase. I think you're going to see, more consumption of say mid and higher-end products as well, and you can see that in the cars, which people are buying. And India's demographic dividend is continue to play a big part, at least the next 25 years. We don't know what happens after that, but I think I'm good with 25 years because our Prime Minister's Amrit Kal journey is the next 25 years. So, and I think we will have the largest population growth and availability, in the coming years. This is a challenge. I see this as an opportunity. That's why I put this an opportunity. This women's participation in the workforce across India is less than 20%. In Tamil Nadu, it's a lot higher. And, some of my friends have visited our factory. We are almost 100% women in our factory. So we are about 87% women, but it's, again, a small drop in the ocean of opportunity, I think, which we have. Like I said, India's electronics journey will go from, about 75 billion to about 300 billion in the next couple of fiscal years. And I think it's definitely going to happen across multiple segments. You're going to see that growth, and we just need to invest in the right technology, the right capabilities, and the right scale, to support that. Now, this is one slide I wanted to share with you. These are the 5 broad subsystems, which constitute any electronic product. When you look at the bill of materials stack of electronics, everybody gets very excited about semiconductors. That's how the countries today are. These are our estimates, from my group, and clearly, yeah, you can see the colors as well. So clearly you can see India is not there. Yes, we have designers, but the manufacturing is non-existent. That means there's an opportunity here. PCB, we have very, I think it's like 0.2% or something like that. We have capability up to doing 4-layer PCBs. Again, a massive opportunity, for India. Display, is down to advanced AMOLED displays. the world has gone so much ahead. And India, we've not even started, in this process, even though back before India signed the ITA-1 agreement in 1997, we used to be, our TV industry used to be fully vertically integrated. We used to make CRTs in India. And then here we are drawn a blank here. Batteries, a lot of opportunities, and this number is not, this is lithium ion batteries, not packaging, this is cell production. So again, massive opportunity. The government of India has a fantastic policy under Atmanirbhar Bharat, and hopefully that we will start to see some numbers getting posted here. Electromechanical, mechanical, these are advanced high precision technologies, and not easy, but easy enough to sort of get on. India has some level of capability already, and then we're going to build on that. But again, it's a big opportunity for us. Now, all of these things have to come together, to really give you the supply chain strength, which is needed to be a global supply hub. So as I told you, this is the 300 million goal, we have. We in our company, Bharat FIH, Foxconn Technology Group company, have been doing things in our way and style. Our parent group, the Foxconn Group, is a fairly large company, headquartered in Taiwan, and we came to India a little before Make in India. It just so happened that it coincided with the Make in India journey, and our commitment to Make in India and Digital India has been I'd say pretty okay, and I think strengthening, and I think now with Atmanirbhar Bharat, our commitment is strengthening here. So what we do in Bharat FIH is multiple products and design. So in fact, we started our design center right across in the B block, and we've designed some products. We've not yet launched them to the market, but that is our idea of starting getting this process of integrated design started in India. So 3 very quick things which we have recommended to the government on how to take this forward. One is a differentiated policy, and I say that we need to have a differentiated policy for whatever is being sold in India. I think we need to really be conducive. Yes, it's not a very large market, but it is large enough as a starter market that we need to have a separate policy for that. We've made our recommendations for friendshoring and things like that. I think the PLI scheme has been extremely supportive, but we have to explore more opportunities there. So the second is having mega hubs. So today in Tamil Nadu, there are already 2 what I call mega hubs. One is in Sriperumbudur. We are part of that. Many other illustrious companies are also part of that. The second one is evolving in Hosur, and a lot of the EV play is happening there, and of course the Tata Electronics Group is also there, and then comes the NCR region, mainly centered around Noida, Greater Noida, but there's room for more. We think that clearly there's room for at least 20 more clusters. And when you look at any scale country in electronics, these clusters are very, very important. The last but not the least is, I think, is our journey in Atmanirbhar Bharat. I think, at least this is my personal definition of Atmanirbhar Bharat, is we have to design in India, and it's not design services. I think design services are great, but you got to design, and then there is a productization, which you have to do. You have to make sure that you choose the right components, you do the right tooling and ensure that that product is going to meet spec and scale, right? And that is what I call integrated design. Then, of course, is Make in India, multiple tiers, just like what we do in the automotive industry. I think it's very, very important. And of course, last but not the least, a lot of people don't think too much is Indian machines, machines and instrumentation. If you don't build machines, build instruments which are capable of manufacturing or measuring these things, you're not going to be able to design the right product. So I think this competency is going to be very, very important as we go forward. So I think all these elements are getting into play. The government is quite committed to this. I see industry, both multinationals and domestic companies are getting on board. I will encourage you to also jump into this bandwagon, whether you're a startup who wants to take advantage of beautiful infrastructure coming from the 5G framework, or the geopolitical opportunities which are coming out, or you're a medium scale company transitioning into another area like electronics. I would encourage you to look into this space. So with that, thank you very much, and I'll be open for questions with Varun later. Thanks.
Thank you, Josh. Very, very exciting opportunity and quite a lot of interesting ideas that we should cover as we do the discussion. I think we heard from two leaders of firms that are shaping the space, the industry view, right? I think Admiral Venkat, you'll have a unique vantage point as both someone who invests and someone who consumes the products that are coming out in this space. So, and there were a lot of interesting things that you were mentioning as we were chatting around how much of this is actually value addition that's going back into the GDP, et cetera. Would love to hear some opening thoughts from you before we get into the discussion.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, my distinguished panelists. Most of what I was to speak, my eminent panelist, Mr. Jayant Patil, has already covered. But I would be speaking to you in French today and not in English, because in 1784, if Admiral Suffren had not withdrawn from his campaign against the British fleet, right here off the Coromandel coast, and gone back to his base at Mauritius. Come to think of it, I could be speaking in Tamil today, had the great Chola Empire not declared in the 13th century. Thank you. So I'll be giving a national security and geostrategic perspective as to why Atmanirbharta is important, why it is important for an inclusive and sustainable economic growth. But before that, if I were to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to picturize or visualize India's map, this is what probably you'll see. Am I right? But that's just half the map. This is what India should look like, all of us. The reason why I'm speaking English today is because with the decline of the Cholas, India lost the command of the seas. And the next power which got the command of the seas was the British, because the French withdrew. So to have the command of the seas, because the Indian Ocean is very, very critical for India's economy, India's growth, India's destiny. And that is why we need to have the command of the seas. And from a naval perspective, this is how we see India. It's an ocean of opportunities there. Just to give a short brief on the India's maritime geography. You see the yellow lines away from the coast at 200 nautical miles. That's 370 kilometers from the coast. Across India and the island territories, it's almost 70% of the national landmass, 2.3 million square kilometers. Of course, there are a number of other issues, but the most critical thing is for the economy to run. The lifeblood of the economy is our petroleum imports, the crude oil imports especially. More than 95% of India's trade by volume and 60% by value is through the seas. there is an entire undersea activity which happens. India is the third largest fish producing market, 8% of the global production. 99%, more than that, of all the internet communication through undersea cables. Of course, deep sea minerals, rare earth minerals. $1.3 billion per day will be the loss to the economy if there is a maritime security situation in the Indian Ocean region today. Up to $1.3 billion. This is for the breakdown on table. Most important, we got 32 million global diaspora of Indians. And the Indian presence in the seas is a great reassurance for them. In 2006, I was involved in an evacuation from Lebanon. We are deployed in the Mediterranean and between the conflict between the Israelis and Hezbollahs. And we evacuated about 3,000 Indian, Sri Lankan, Nepalese, Americans from Beirut in Lebanon. This is the inward remittance of the Indian diaspora, almost 2.7% of our GDP. So considering the criticality of the Indian Ocean region and the necessity to have the command of the seas for freedom of navigation for our trade and commerce to progress, at the turn of independence, the Indian naval planners, the Indian naval leadership in 1947-48 came with a concept paper that envisioned a navy that would be a blue water force, a force centered on aircraft carrier groups with a balanced mix of ships and submarines. Secondly, our planners decided to be a builder's navy. We would design and build our own ships in India. And today I'm proud to say, in the 60-year journey, the last 6 decades, we started with the first ship in 1960s, a small patrol craft built by the Garden shipbuilders. And today, as Mr. Patil has already brought out, we are building aircraft carriers and submarines. Not only that, across the last 25 years, from 1997, when the first major destroyer, the INS Delhi was built, it had 42% indigenous content. Today, in 25 years, we almost doubled to 82% in the aircraft carrier, the Vikrant. Mr. Patil has already brought that out, and it's a plowback effect into the economy. In the last 60 years, the Indian Navy has built in India 132 platforms. And I'm very proud to say that of the 45 platforms on order currently under construction, 43 are being built in India. 55 platforms, 49 ships, and 6 submarines are in various stages of contract conclusions, and each one of them is being designed and built in India. Just the naval shipbuilding has a multiplier effect. One shipyard job creates 6.4 in the ancillary industries. Well, I'm not a management or a finance person, but you understand what I'm saying. This is important because unless we have the entire design and production with us, we will be dependent on somebody else, and that entity may not support us when we require it. The entire supply chain gets disrupted. This is what Mr. Patil mentioned about reinvesting back into the economy, the budget. The Navy typically has a 68 to 32% capital to revenue ratio of the defense budget, what comes to the Navy. Since 2014, we have invested almost 1.67 lakh crores, 61%. And it's our aim this financial year to make it to 91% into the indigenous industries of all the Navy's capital procurement budget. Do remember that even when the ship gets commissioned, a typical large platform from design to decommissioning, that is when the ship finally pays off, is almost a 40 to 45 years life cycle. Major platform generally remains in commission for 35 to 40 years. An aircraft carrier goes on to 50 years. Virat was within the Indian Navy for 50 years. We have the oldest destroyer, the INS Rana, for 41 years. So what happens is ships and submarines get mid-life upgrades. Well, the hull form remains the same. Equipment, machinery, weapon systems get upgraded every 15 to 20 years. Plus, the original equipment manufacturers continue to remain engaged with the ships because of the supply chain for refits and repairs and maintenance. So it's a lifetime investment. And the last thing which the Navy decided was, apart from making everything indigenous, also to innovate. Navy is a highly tech-intensive organization, and we need to remain ahead of the curve. So we in 2021 created Naval Innovation and Indigenous Organization. In a short span of 1.5 years, we have had 36 patents in these are niche technologies. In smart technologies, artificial intelligence, quantum communications, drones, unmanned weapons, unmanned platforms, including undersea platforms. There's an entire domain of warfare which happens undersea, where it's less light and more sound. So sonars, in fact, the father of the modern Indian sonar is Commodore Paul Raj. You can Google his name up and you can thank him for the MIMO technology that provides that for all of us with Googling him up. So keeping this in view, I'll keep my brief short. This is our commander's guidance, my chief's guidance. India is inherently a maritime nation. And being the primary manifestation of India's sea power, the Indian Navy has a mandate to protect, preserve, and promote the nation's maritime interests. As we embark on the journey towards Vision India at 2047, guided by Atmanirbharta, it is my firm belief that we must remain focused on being fully Atmanirbhar. Force that is combat ready, credible, cohesive, and future-proof, capable of meeting present and future challenges. The term future-proof requires us to challenge the status quo, embrace technology, innovation and indigenization, and on the way to becoming a complete Atmanirbhar Navy, we must be able to fight the future battles alongside other services in an integrated manner. That is our vision. So for 60 years, for the last 7 decades rather, the Navy has stayed steadfast focused on Atmanirbharta, and we are proud to say today that bulk of our platforms, weapon systems, and thanks to our industry partners, like Mr. Patil's organization, L&T, and also many, many small MSME players, we are on track of being Atmanirbhar. And the proof of that Atmanirbharta is this. So the historic day this month on 6th of February. When the Indian designed and Indian built light combat aircraft Navy landed on an Indian designed, Indian built aircraft carrier. This is as of this month on 6th of Feb. That's our commitment to Atmanirbharta. Thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you, Chair, for the time.
Thank you, Admiral Venkat. Very, very inspiring. I think the why of Atmanirbharta is very clear, especially over the course of these 3 presentations, we heard that loud and clear, right? So maybe the discussion we can focus a little bit more on what do we need to do and how do we what can we focus on and how do we make this happen, right? I want to start off, JT, with the interesting factoid that you mentioned, which is in defense, our private sector needs to grow to about 55,000 crores in terms of in size, value creation. Second is there are about 600 licenses that are issued, but 130 companies that are actually manufacturing. So what would it take for us to get there? You know, what are some of the opportunity specific areas and what would it take for us to get there?
To my mind, bulk of the industry is today operating suboptimal despite the numbers that I talked. Now, obviously, wherever there's opportunity, beauty of private sector, it is able to find its own funds and invest and be ready ahead. Fortunately, this is a peculiar sector wherein you know about an opportunity far too ahead. It's not like today something happens and tomorrow there's a policy implication which gets into act. And this is where the facilities or the requirements in terms of investment keeps getting created ahead of time when it is needed. The industry, as I see, is far beyond the numbers that I showed. Roughly 350 companies, 599 licenses, but there's 12,000 MSMEs today in India that actually engage in defense manufacture. So the tierization is so deep, and it is this 12,000 organizations. If I now average it out, take 35,000 crores of defense output divided by 12,000, it is only 3 crore a company. So this is something which is a way of monitoring that this, we believe, will keep growing. And out of that 170,000 crore opportunity, Typically, I believe that by the turn of 25, 26, the private industry share would have grown from the current 33, or let's say 30, somewhere between 33, 40. If I include the exports, 1/3 of domestic is in private. And of course, as I said, 90% of export is in private. If I put together about 40, 43, 44,000 crores, will actually double in next 3 years to about 85,000 crores. Now, this is one of those measures by which one starts seeing whether it's getting, because if only few big companies we build, it's not going to be able to deliver this. And I think the good part of what the policies today are actually ensuring small tenders, no big ones are allowed to bid. So there are specific reservations which are created to essentially make sure that the whole ecosystem of what is happening in the industry gets built. And towards that, there's more and more of liberalization. I remember of an era where government used to decide its own policies. Defense policies, I would say about 8 years back, completely changed through a full-fledged debate and discussion. To give an example, the last policy called DAP 2020, 105 interactions with industry happened. So here's a customer, including whether we call bureaucrats, the armed forces, have that kind of an openness to say, I'm thinking this way, what do you think? Do you have a better way? Please suggest me a better way and we'll carry it forward. So this is essentially where it has become. Despite all the secrecy and whatever we keep talking, there's enormous amount of openness. And I think the success that we see over this last 1 decade has far much more to do with that opening of the minds. I think that's what will take us forward.
Just maybe picking on that, you'd mentioned that a lot of the defense products are very specialized in nature, one, and two, they're not repeat manufactured items. It's one large project where you do it one time, right? So given the specialized nature, I guess the question is, how ready is our indigenous private sector to be able to cater to the full demand of the defense? And what do you see as the mix of, indigenous manufactured products versus best of breed globally?
Thing is this economics of scale. So typically, highly specialized niche equipment for defense would mean less numbers. But to that, many of the technology now are dual-use technologies. So other than very highly specialized weapon and sensor system, most could be put to commercial productions also. That is because the fundamentals remain the same, whether it's IT or ICT or semiconductors, etc. It's only which are highly specialized weapon systems, and that, of course, can also be profit generating if it's the export market for that. And that's what we're currently looking at. So it's not really as it was earlier, that making for defense would mean huge investment with little profits out of that. Plus, as Mr. Patil mentioned, and the number of these niche technologies come from smaller players and MSME sectors. And over the years, the government, and I'm speaking specifically with the Navy, we have also realigned our priorities and requirements and the processes to do a lot of hand-holding. So the initial investment, especially of a new startup or a new player in the field, there are mechanisms like the IDEX, the IDF. IDF is the TDF, the Technology Fund. So specific in the budget itself, there is earmarking of funds for helping and hand-holding of the industry. So it's a mix and match of both the export market, also bring out dual use purposes, and hand-holding of the initial step.
Great. Very interesting. Maybe Josh, if we can switch gears to electronics manufacturing. Again, a lot of fascinating numbers you had stated. Right? To start off, it's a very broad industry. There's upstream, downstream, there are multiple product lines. How do you see this evolving for a country like India, where do we go wide across categories, or do you think it makes sense to take a few categories, go really, really deep and become globally dominant in terms of IP, etc.?
This question was asked by somebody I respect and admire a lot. And my answer is, sir, we are 1.4 billion strong. So we need all of them. Maybe we roadmap them, maybe there's a roadmap on what you achieve 0 to 18 months, 0 to 36 months, 10 years, 20 years, and so on and so forth. So, but I think we've reached a point, I don't think we have a choice. I think we need everything. However, what we did under Make in India was we started with the higher volume mobile phones as a category. And we put a phased manufacturing program. And the government, was driving this very sincerely, and the results are there to be seen. And now with PLI, it is scaling back. So we are going category by category where you start with what is sort of a good mover in India, or what is of strategic importance to India. And then sort of look at, so you start with India market, indigenize that, then you get into sort of the export space, right? So that's for the end products. In terms of subsystems, this is where things get very capital intensive. We started with mechanicals, we started with accessories, and those were capital intensive, but not as capital intensive, let's say like a semiconductor. So, and some of them have very long, gestation periods, like 5 to 10 years return on investment. So, and again, going subsystem by subsystem, because as I showed in my information there, we have a long way to go to catch up on all these things, and some of them are quite fundamental, to electronics. And electronics subsystem is today in anything both the gentlemen are using or are putting together. Electronics is a big part, and a circuit board is as important as a semiconductor which goes there. And you need to have that capability, or at least a roadmap for that capability there. So I think the government is quite calibrated in its approach, and the industry has been consulted. Very happy to see that even the defense side, there is a lot of consultations. But I can definitely tell you the last 7 years, the consultation with the government and the industry bodies has been fabulous. And so very much in sync. So I think it's a 25-year journey. As I said, designing is going to be a very big part, where companies like us will do joint R&D programs or original design programs. We will do multi-tier manufacturing of end products and things. And of course, building machines, tooling machines, instruments for making all of these things to really show that, this country is 1.4 billion people strong. So.
Fantastic. Just staying on that thought, right? A few things you mentioned that were very interesting. One, it's capital intensive with long gestation periods. And during your presentation as well, you spoke about how we used to be vertically integrated in televisions. We don't do as much on displays now, right? And there are decades that have passed between where other parts of the world built know-how, built capabilities, maturity. How do you go up the maturity curve very rapidly so we can become a competitive manufacturer, competitive designer in these areas?
I think it's, using the example of defense, defense use offsets as a mechanism. It's been very successfully done over the last decades. And I think joint ventures, are another mechanism. But clearly, multinationals have a lot of expertise, and the ability to quickly ramp up is going to be very, very important. And having the right environment for these companies to be, to participate, very, very cleverly in this journey, I think is going to be a big game changer. And one of the things people always ask me is the skill level in India a challenge, and I completely disagree. Because I think when you look at all levels of skill, PhD down to associate level, we have a lot of skill, and the quality is also good. And the key is how you get them ready quickly. And so a combination of the right companies, having the right framework to be a part of India, and with the right skill availability, and the right provisions for them, I think we can make it happen.
Absolutely. And the fact that we have 22% of the working age population puts us in a great position to do that. Same question for you, JD, as well. How are you seeing the private sector getting ready in some of these areas where we are still building capabilities? What are some of the interesting things that you're doing for people to drive innovation, build capabilities, scale up manufacturing, economies, etc.?
I think bulk of the journey in India, if I really track, it has not so much leveraged the foreign relationships or for that matter, the JVs. And I tell you, there's a very specific reason for it. One reason is any development in cutting edge always happens at the cost of that government, wherever it happened. And as a result, transfer of know-how is very seriously controlled by each nation, and nothing they would like to give if it was anything which is meaningful. So what you truly can buy, and this is exactly what was happening to India, what you can buy is always the obsolete. So if you didn't want to be stuck into the obsolescence, you had to do it yourself. Some of the extremely major revelations was, and this happened to us during the Kargil times, and Venkatraman will hold my hand on this. This is a period we could not do simple and basic operations of our own fleets because some spare somewhere remains stuck. Fast forward to Ukraine, and we see that if your lot of electronics was built outside and you did not check the electronics in terms of its sanitized version of the hardware as well as the software, you having a machine will do nothing for you. You can't even start it. You want to push a trigger for firing, it will never fire. Now, this is exactly what we notice, that these are strategic issues, and for the strategic issues, there's nothing like, कहते हैं ना, मरोगे तो उस वक्त दिखेगा. तो आप खुद मरो, उसके बाद you can look at the heaven. And this is precisely why the Atmanirbhar became a very serious journey as far as the Ministry of Defense is concerned. If you don't do those capabilities here, nobody is going to give you capability. If you take capability, you're going to get into obsolescence. If you buy that obsolescence, it anyway doesn't do anything for you. And any day it can be switched off, denying you a use. Now, this is precisely what has actually made sure that enormous investments today, earlier days, primarily through defense research, today industry is spending money. Wherever they see opportunity, they spend money. So R&D as a part of a culture has begun in a very, very big way. And other aspect is government last financial year budget, rather 22-23 budget, made an amazing announcement that the R&D budget of Government of India should be 25% farmed out now to private industry, startups and academia. Now, this is something which is completely earth-shaking because earlier days, all R&D spending of government used to be only through government departments. Call it CSIR, call it Department of Space, Department of Atomic Energy, for that matter, the DRDO. Now, once you start physically putting money into the hands of people, you will start seeing this would leverage far more futuristic work actually happening in the industry. And to do anything of that kind, the earlier question that you asked, Admiral, what do you do if you're producing it only once? Fact is, it is not going to be bought next. And that's essentially where you decide as a strategy in terms of the top levels in the government as to what capability I can give to my friendly nations. One, for industry, it builds sustenance to be able to do what you did and spent in terms of R&D, in terms of investments in industrializing, to giving it to your armed forces, sustenance through exports. Second aspect, we then decide our own independence, the entire external affairs relationships and the strategic aspect of our independence starts actually coming in because we decide by strategy who I should give what capability. I think to sit in that position and decide what I will want to give is extremely important to any nation to remain completely independent. And today you actually see India being actually able to do it. We have friends everywhere, but what policy or what kind of position India will take, nobody can predict. We don't have to be with Russia, we don't have to be with the US, we don't have to be with China, and we can decide being friend to everybody, but I'm still independent. I think this level of strategic independence comes when you start doing things yourself, and that's where it's extremely relevant that on strategic side, nobody will give you. On strategic sectors, 25 years India remained in the regime of what is called sanctions. And I think what created in the strategic sector by India is simply because the world denied it to you. If you deny it to me, I agree with what my colleague said. We have 140 crore of us, we'll create it.
Absolutely. I mean, it stands out that one, this is a necessity, not a choice, right? And two, that anyway, we're very, very well positioned to do this. So just picking on the point of the focus on engaging with institutions, academic institutions, industries, etc. How are you changing the way in which you drive innovation? You spoke about the 36 patents that you've launched, right? But how do you engage with external parties, the private sector in this entire R&D and innovation process?
As I mentioned, we had set up this Naval Innovation and Indigenization Organization, precisely meant to interface both with the academia and with the private industry. And it's a small organization in terms of number of people, but they have full freedom to function. And they regularly interact with the academia, with both the big industries and with also the small players, also with the IITs and other technical institutions, so that we keep looking forward and look at all the niche technologies. And that is thereafter supported by the various funds the government has earmarked for R&D purposes, as Mr. Patil brought. Our philosophy for the last 70 years has been that it should absolutely, for the purposes, again, Mr. Patil brought out strategic reasons, we will have to be Atmanirbhar, we have to be ourselves, do everything from scratch ourselves. The government already decides as to how the economic scales work out through various mechanisms. So this organization of the NIIO is what is fundamentally meant to interface with academia, with the industry, to look at future technologies. In fact, one of the products we produced was the Navrakshak PPE suite in the COVID times. The doctor part of this team, he's the one who produced that. That's become a patented item now for all of the country. It came in handy during the peak of the pandemic. So similarly, the other organization, the Ministry of Defense, itself got the IDEX model and the technology development funds. So there is a regular engagement, and now, as both my eminent colleagues have brought out from the industry voice, that for the past decade, the government interfaces regularly with the industry, getting suggestions, getting consultations, etc., to move forward. So the aim remains that we need to be Atmanirbhar. We can't be dependent on somebody else's products to fight our battles. And the naval philosophy, especially in the for the innovation sector, for the small startups, I can only quote Tirukural on it. Kana muleda ambinil yanai, yanai pirathal enduminind. Hail the spear that missed the elephant rather than the arrow that killed the rabbit. We are a combat force, our risk taking is inherent in our DNA. So we factor all our prospective plans and our operational plans with setbacks in mind. So our plans are robust enough to handle setbacks and dynamic enough to realign to the new realities. So we don't mind setbacks, and every new project, niche technologies will have some setbacks, but we do the handholding. And the end result is, like I showed you, an aircraft carrier designed and built in India, an aircraft designed and built in India.
Thank you. Josh, there are about 5 questions on the 98% of smartphone manufacturing is in India today, right? So just 2 parts, 2 themes that are coming through from the audience. One is, how much of this is assembly versus how much of it is the components that go into the smartphone, right? How much of the value add is sitting out of India? But more importantly, how see this evolving moving forward? What next after 5G?
I think, so I've been making mobile phones for 25 years now. So 18 years with Nokia, and the last almost 8 years with Bharat FIH. And most electronic products are circuit board population, which you can say it's assembly, but if you come to my factory floor, like some of my friends, it's a little bit more than assembly. and then you have your assembly of your product. And a lot of the components, as I explained to you, the semiconductor, memory, the PCB, the battery, the display, all of these different subsystems are there. Now, in India, typically what happens is you start with assembly, and that's where you start everywhere. And you test it, you tune it, you calibrate it, set it up. And then you start to do the circuit board assembly. So that's the second step. So when you typically say a phone is made in India, these are the two processes which are considered manufactured. Okay. You can call it assembled, but I would disagree with you. That's actually called manufacturing a phone, or any device, or any sort of device. Now, mobile phone production in the last 7-8 years, a lot of the mechanics, the housings, some of the internal metals are also getting localized now. A lot of the accessories are done here, almost near 100%. Some of the batteries, I'll say almost 100% of the batteries is done, or at least packed, today in India. I will say possibly displays have started to come in. Probably 20-30% of the displays are being made, at least assembled in India. So now, when you look at a feature phone, smartphone, anywhere from 25 to 40% of the product cost is localized. Now, that said, electronics is a very global industry. So these supply chains are quite distributed. And so there are certain countries where there is a huge concentration. Advanced semiconductor comes out of Taiwan, Korea, a little bit in Japan, and displays, a lot of that comes from Korea, Taiwan, China, and so on and so forth. So now, of course, the goal in India is to do everything over the next, 3 years, 5 years, and so on and so forth. But this is really, what I mean is localization, and the progress is good. And what happens is once you do a certain manufacturing, especially in a mobile phone is very dense. You try to pack 1,500 to 2,000 components in a fairly small footprint, both sides of a board. All other products become a lot easier. And so we are seeing that expansion now happening. And I clearly see this being a trend, where we are able to design, build all of these things in India. Definitely in the right track, but we got to keep up the momentum.
Absolutely. And it's not that different. Even if you look at China and iPhone manufacturing as an example, 35 to 40% of the value add will be in China. But beyond that, it's really a global industry. So I think it is a global industry, and it's not a bad thing that it's a global industry. But to the point you made right up front, which is let's identify what is strategically important to us and the 140 crore people in this country and focus our efforts on going up the maturity curve on those fronts. We have time for one final question. So maybe some parting thoughts. We have an audience full of future leaders, future entrepreneurs, current entrepreneurs. Any parting thoughts for them as they think about the Atmanirbharta opportunity?
User first.
Thank you, sir. Well, I just have to say, just reiterate what my distinguished colleagues have mentioned. 140 crore population. I was just thinking to myself, the rest of all the other major defense manufacturers, except China, that is, the United States, the European Union, Israel, Russia, Turkey, Britain, all put together don't add up to 140 crores. So obviously we can be better than them. So there's enough of power in 140 crores, and I think that's what is required. We put our heads together, think through things, and nothing is impossible. It can be done here. Thank you.
The game in strategic sectors, and defense is included in that, is it keeps disrupting itself. So what you all are hearing believe me, next 20 years, you are going to see completely something different. And as future leaders, your focus has to be what is that is going to be. I'll just give an example. What all we see in terms of battlefield transparency when we say whether we talk of naval, whether we talk of army or air force scenarios, the methods and mechanisms by which we know where is enemy, to identify the enemy and then decide whether he is hostile or not hostile, and then if he is hostile, target him. This entire process, I believe, is in for a complete change. And the more and more we start seeing the confluence between the space and defense, we'll actually start seeing this all happening right from space in real time. Now, you have no limit of what you can see. You have no limit in terms of what resolutions you can achieve, which in ground, especially because the terrains, is just not possible. Admiral had mentioned about Dr. Paul Raj and sonars, but I can tell you a sonar which functions in India, in Indian waters, Indian conditions of sea, would function infinitely superior in any other sea because of the tropics, because of the kind of layers it actually produces, because of the heat, because of the turbidity of our seas and the salinity. The poorest performance of equipment truly because of our terrains, our kind of fighting conditions is in India. If an equipment functions here, blindly you can take that equipment anywhere and it would do superlatively different. And this is reality. And this is exactly what is today getting captured in the form of what India is doing as experts. And these exports, I believe, in terms of times to come, with the kind of technologies, it's a matter of leverage. I can only give a little background while communicating this message. Till 2015, India did not allow defense goods to be exported. Now, whatever you keep hearing the numbers, they are meager. For an economy size, what is 20,000 crore? Nothing. But the 20,000 crore becomes extremely important because this is something which has happened in exactly 6 years' time. We used to send a peacekeeping force outside, and the cost of the peacekeeping force used to be treated as our exports. This is a scenario of 2014. From 300 crores of 2012-13 to 750 crore of 2014-15 to the 12,000 crore of last year, and much larger targets for this and the budget year as we are seeing, is a journey which obviously only industry can take it forward. And to that extent, the future leadership obviously needs to look at what is that will be done, new stuff that would be done, how to reach globally. Probably our generation fought and made it happen in this country. The next generation has to truly see it go global. And as I said, if you build it for India, it will work anywhere else.
I think it's in my mind, electronics is going to be essential for most sort of end products. And I think so, even though I'm a mechanical engineer, my wife sometimes says that jokes that you tripped and you got into electronics manufacturing because you like the air-conditioned work environment. And some truth in that, but over the last 25 years I've been in this space, it has been incredible to see what this can do. The clock speed of this industry, the velocity of change which this industry brings about is just incredible. And it's going to disrupt multiple spaces. So I think it's India's time to get on this. If in my simple Atmanirbhar Bharat framework, Indian design, make in India, or Indian machines, please pick one of them. And I think you can contribute in this journey. I think it's going to be a huge industry. It already is a 3 trillion industry. It's in convergence with automotive industry, which is another 3 trillion industry. And it's going to disrupt many other spaces as we go forward. And so the opportunities are quite abound, not just in India, but beyond. So please do join in. There is a lot of software also. People get very, India is a software country. Yes, and this is embedded software, firmware. a lot of, sort of things which you work at a kernel level, which I think is going to be very, very important. So look forward, for your participation in this journey. Thank you.
Mr. Patel, Mr. Folger. Thank you for what's been a really, really insightful discussion and more importantly, an inspiring discussion. I'm personally walking away with two things, right? Number one, the opportunity is endless. We've made giant strides forward and the foundations are there for us to become self-reliant. That's number one. Second, I walked into this discussion thinking it was going to be about Atmanirbharta, self-reliance. I'm walking away with the message that this is about becoming an integral part of the global supply chain and export powerhouse, many, many opportunities. So don't then just think India market, think global.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Varun, for so nicely moderating the session. A lot of insights there. So time for us to honor the panelists on the stage. May I invite Mr. Giridhar Gopal, the CEO of Addison, Mr. Mahalingam, Convention Chairman, and Mr. Shankar of Axis Investments to come onto the stage, please. Hello, sir. So first to Mr. Varun. Mr. Giridhar, please. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, let's give them a round of applause. A very fascinating topic and a lot of takeaways from here. Atmanirbhar Bharat is the way forward and great opportunity there. And to the Rear Admiral. So with this, we come to the close of the second business session.